and welcome back for part 2 of our daily virtues, our Monday through Friday happies. My name is Sarah Tillinghast. I'm a platinum certified whole brain teaching instructor. I teach kindergarten in the state of Missouri, and my whole brain teaching street name is Skittles. So if you ever see anything that is talking about Skittles within whole brain teaching social media, it's referring to me, not the yummy rainbow candy that many people like to eat. But let's go ahead. And I see multiple people are already on watching us live. So let me go ahead and introduce my other amazing people that are with us today. First, we have Miss Blue. Dawn, hello. Introduce yourself.
Sure. My name's Dawn McGregor, or Blue. That's my street name. I teach first grade in Lamars, Iowa, and I'm also a platinum certified whole brain instructor.
Awesome. And then we also have the bear, Weston, here with us today. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you. Like you said, my street name is Bear, and my real name is Weston Lamb Costantino. I am a gold certified music teacher here in Wyoming.
And today, Weston, so yesterday Weston was the student. He is actually going to be our chat guru. So we're going to say goodbye to his handsome face, and we're going to let him go ahead and get into the chat. And we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to review really quick before I show the slides. So in part 1 yesterday, so Dawn, we're going to be doing silent mirrors for right now. So in part 1, we talked about glorious kindness, and this was our gesture, making our hands into a heart. Positive leadership, so it's like your hand is holding a flag and waving it very happily. And selfless courage, so you make one hand with arm muscle stretch like up, and then one hand arm muscles towards your hip. So Dawn, can you please explain the 3 virtues that we talked about yesterday in part 1?
Thanks, Skittles. So the first one is glorious kindness, and you make a heart shape. Second is positive leadership. It's like you're waving a flag as you're leading a parade. And then the third one is selfless courage. You make one arm muscle up and one arm muscle down.
Woohoo! Thank you, Dawn. So this is all from chapter 15 in Coach's new book, Whole Brain Teaching for Challenging Kids, the 2nd edition. And I'm going to take time right now so I don't interrupt myself in the middle of my presentation. Skittles is doing a July giveaway. So the bear is going to be putting details on how to enter that giveaway for you to get a free copy. If you already have a copy, what you could do if you enter into this giveaway, if you win a second copy, you could give it to a teacher friend or your administration, because I get it. I've marked in my book, I love this book. It's going to be really hard for me to give this copy away. So you can enter the giveaway to give the copy to somebody else. Way to show glorious kindness, right? So let's go ahead and let's get started. All right, there we go. Sorry, Skittles sometimes has sound effects. I'm still cool. All right. Hey, class.
Hey, yes.
Thank you, class.
You're welcome, Mrs. T.
Mirror words.
Mirror words.
Our 4th virtue.
Our 4th virtue
is invincible grit.
Is invincible grit.
Invincible grit.
Invincible grit
is our 4th virtue.
Is our 4th virtue.
Now, I want you to find either your Post-it notepad, your phone, your pen, whatever's close around you. I'm going to have you teach them the 4th virtue. Here we go. Teach.
Okay. The 4th virtue is invincible grit. The 4th virtue is invincible grit.
Hey, class.
Hey, yes.
Thank you, class.
You're welcome, Skittles.
Silent mirrors. All right, so I love using silent mirrors when I want to talk about something important. However, I don't want my students to start getting in trouble with their hands. So they're making my gestures as we go. So let's look a little bit closer at our Invincible Grit poster. First, we have our awesome squirrel, Frilly. And if you notice, Frilly is actually doing the Invincible Grit gesture. Very nice. I love that when it's on those posters, okay? And also, Lily, the bluebird here, has a sentence frame, and there are 2 brainy gestures. Now, I don't want you to get confused. A brainy gesture is a memory gesture that we use for our brain to remember a certain concept or word. So the two brainy gestures here is Invincible Grit, okay, and the Because Crusher, okay. So Lily here is saying has grit because, and then just finishing that sentence. So Skittles is gonna do one right now, okay? So I'm gonna use my son. So here we go. So my son has grit because if his jacket zipper gets stuck, he doesn't give up. Uh, okay? So everyone does a different I think next week, Joanna, or maybe it's in 2 weeks, I forget. Joanna's gonna be doing the punctuation brainies, and you just go off of what Joanna teaches you, not what Skittles teaches you, because Skittles kinda messes up her sound effects every time she does it, and then what happens is her brainy gestures, whenever I teach class, that's what I do for the whole year, so you don't have to change it. So, anyway, invincible grit is so important, okay, because all of us face challenging tasks, including us as teachers. All right. So you can model this. You can model this. Let me see if I can make myself a little bit bigger. Ooh, look at that. I made myself really big, but where'd Dawn go? Oh, well. Dawn, I miss you. Okay. Maybe you'll come back in a second. All right. So all of us, including teachers, face challenging tasks. So you can model this virtue often because if you're having trouble, Skittles has tech issues like right now where like Dawn like went into like I don't know, a cloud somewhere. I mean, I see her, but I know you can't. So, um I've got grit, I don't quit. That's what I usually say out loud to my students. If I'm having trouble with my computer in my classroom, I just say, boys and girls, I'm having a little bit of trouble. I've got grit. I don't quit. So you want to model that behavior. I'm going to bring Dawn back because that felt really weird not having Dawn with me. And then they also use it to encourage one another, okay? So when they see someone who's struggling, maybe they're trying to put on their jacket. In my kindergarten class, I've got some friends that have not learned to put on their jackets yet, and so they learned that in kindergarten. So they're encouraging their friend next to them and say, "You've got grit, you don't quit." So invincible grit is so important. It's so hard for me to pick a favorite virtue because they all, again, I talked about this yesterday, they all mesh together. They're all important. So that's our invincible grit. Now, if you have questions, do not worry. I look at the chat when I'm all done and I'll get all your questions answered. But most of the time, Weston and all the ones who've been my chat gurus, they most of the time get them all answered before the end of the session. So we're going to go ahead and move on. So, hey, class.
Hey, yes.
Thank you, class.
You're welcome, Skittles.
Mirror words.
Mirror words.
Our fifth
and
final virtue
is
brainy creativity.
Brainy creativity.
Brainy creativity is our fifth virtue. Now, if you talked to your phone the last time, I don't want you to have your phone think they're no longer your partner. So whatever object you taught last time, that's what you need to teach again. All right, here we go. Teach.
Okay, our fifth virtue is brainy creativity.
Hey, class.
Hey, yes.
Thank you, class.
You're welcome, Skittles.
Silent mirrors. All right. So a couple things I want to talk about really quick, and then I'm actually going to take the poster away really fast to talk about pencil prop. But the bear's name is Ixley. I looked it up. That's according to the World Wide Web. So if somebody wants to argue that with me, then correct me in the comments. I'm totally fine with that. But that's the bear's name. And then Quilly the bluebird. Now you're going to notice Quilly the bluebird, make it new. And then there's a helmet up here on Ixley, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But first, let's talk about make it new. All right. So I don't have a pencil today. I have a pink pen. I'm still cool. All right. So you can, for brainy creativity, in a lesson, think about how your students can use a pencil in the lesson. Maybe you're talking about beginning, middle, and end of a story. So when they're retelling that, which I know that it's mirroring me backwards, and that's okay. But so the beginning, they're going to retell the beginning of the story, the middle of the story, the end of the story. Okay, that's language arts. Maybe they're going to use this pencil to do measurement. Okay, non-standard unit of measurement. Yeah. Okay, maybe they're using this in science. Okay, maybe it's part of a science experiment, and this is going to represent our car and what happens when our car gets momentum and that kind of thing. So they use this is the pencil prop. And again, all of this, which I totally forgot to put the page up. I'm still cool. So all of this is on page 139 in our book. Okay. There's the pencil prop. All right. A lot of time people like to focus on brainy creativity, the artistic side of brainy creativity. I'm not saying you can't do that. Okay. I still do that. That's really great. If that's how you want to introduce brainy creativity, totally do that. But don't leave yourself in a little small box. Okay. I love the arts. Okay. I kind of talked about that yesterday. Okay. I love the arts. But keep pushing your class to do more. So let me bring the poster back up now because I want to talk about Ixley's helmet. Okay. You cannot see the small details. Okay. Skittles had to actually look back on a file of Ixley's helmet from last year to see the small print on these light switches is what I want to call them. Switches. Okay. To remind myself, I knew I could remember 3. I couldn't remember the 4th one. So think about brainy creativity in their oral writing. Okay. So when they're answering your questions, detail adder is one of those switches. All right, tell me more. Tell me some more details about that. What kind of dog ran up the hill? Okay, where did this happen? Okay, like that kind of thing. So you have the detail adder, the because crusher, which I just talked to you about in Invincible Grit. Okay. Oh, yes, you think that the boy shouldn't squish the ant. Can you give me a because crusher and explain why? Okay. So there's the for example. That's another one of the switches for our oral language. Okay. So, I like how you're saying that summer is your favorite season. Can you give me an example of that as well? And you're teaching these brainies. Now, huddle up really close. Would I teach all of these switches the same day? No, I would not do that. And I'm going to talk more about rolling out that stuff in just a few minutes. But yes, I would never try to teach all of my kindergartners all these switches in one day, not even in 1 week. Okay. I don't do that to children. Okay. And then our last switch is the however. Now, I did a challenge last year, and let me go ahead and make because I kind of like us being a little bit larger on the screen. I did a challenge for myself last year, and you can totally do this as well. Okay. I tried very hard to not use the conjunction but because it causes giggles. And I realized that most places where I was using that in conversations, I could replace it with however. And I did that. And oh my goodness, my students were using however. And I wasn't even requesting that of them. I just modeled it the whole year and they started using however. I mean, I was always doing the gesture. I taught them the brainy gesture for it and everything like that. But even in just face-to-face conversation, I wasn't hearing the but anymore. I was hearing however. So do you have to do that challenge? Absolutely not. I just challenged myself last year because I like to challenge myself. It's all good. All right. Going back to our presentation. Oh, good. I'm good on time right now, too. So this is the bonus, okay? So Skittles, Happy's, implementations. So one thing I want you to make sure you understand. So this is point number 6. So mirror words.
Mirror words.
Spend a week.
Spend a week.
Introducing each virtue.
Introducing each virtue.
And give stars.
And give stars.
Super improver.
super improver,
Starries.
starries,
When you see improvement.
when you see improvement.
All right, so that's point number 6. Okay. So, Dawn, can you please explain back? I'm going to go ahead and remove this. Can you please explain back why it's important for us to spend a week on each virtue and then why we should reward super improver or starries when we see improvement in moral growth?
Sure. Thanks, Skittles. So first of all, we have a really long year. There's no need to throw all of this at our students right away. And we want them to really understand what each virtue means. So you're going to spend one whole week on glorious kindness, one whole week on positive leadership. And that will take you pretty much through the first quarter. And she's going to show you a possible schedule that you could use in a little bit. And then as you see improvements, you award those stars or starries. And that's going to motivate your students to keep improving on those.
Yes, thank you, Dawn. All right, and we can keep doing the silent mirrors as I go. So we're going to look at most of the time, I have just shown this, okay? But everyone gets confused by my bulleted points. So we're going to go through my bulleted points, and then we're going to look at a visual I made. It's fresh off the presses today. This is the bonus, Skittles bonus that you get today for part 2, okay? So my first thing, you start the full week after you've taught the rules, okay? However, this year, you're going to see on my calendar, I'm not going to be able to do that, and I'll explain why. But if you're able to start the full week after you've taught the rules, then go ahead and start your Glorious Kindness week. You spend 5 weeks introducing the virtues. You spend an entire week on each virtue. Okay. Now, the calendar I'm about to show you is Skittles recommendation. Does that mean you have to do it Skittles way? Absolutely not. Okay. This isn't in the book, but people always ask, how do I do this? So I'm just going to show you my calendar for this year. That's going to show how I get to the daily cycle, because I don't start Monday glorious kindness, Tuesday positive leadership, Wednesday selfless courage. I don't start it like that. I start with a whole week. So let's look at this. Here is August, and I have little icons that don't make any sense, I'm sure, but I'll explain what my icons are really quick and you'll see. So the stars are when I introduce my rules. I take 7 days. I'm not going into that. If you have further questions on why Skittles has 7 days, go to the kindergarten group and I'll explain it. The circle around the first star is my first day of school because I get to start on a Monday. Yay. No, I'm not going to go into that. Anyway, so here is September. Now, the reason I can't start my first full week after is because of Labor Day. And I don't want to put glorious kindness for only 4 days. So what I'm planning for this year is that's when I'm going to introduce Alpha Hawks. And really quick, I want to talk about one thing briefly. All right. Everything I'm showing on this calendar, I've already implemented in previous years. None of this is new to me as a teacher. So would I tell you to introduce rules, Alpha Hawks, and virtues all brand new? Absolutely not. Okay. Some people do. I don't. You do what's best for you. All right. So I do that 4 days of Alpha Hawk. And then you see my hearts, that stands for my Glorious Kindness week. My blue flags are my positive leadership. See, I kind of had icons matching, but not really, because my orange triangles are my selfless courage. And then in October, I start my Invincible Grit week. And then my purple rainbow is Brainy Creativity. Now, what I forgot to do on this calendar is to show you on the 16th. So look with your eyeballs. On October 16th, that will be my first Glorious Kindness Monday. The 17th will be my first, I'm still cool, Positive Leadership Tuesday. And then Wednesday will be my first Selfless Courage Wednesday. And I'll talk about the red circle in just a moment. Thursday on the 19th will be my first Invincible Grit Thursday. And then 20th will be my first Creativity. All right. So what's the red circle, Skittles? I know that's what you're asking. That is my last day of first quarter. And the reason I'm putting this in here is because it is okay if you don't finish teaching the virtues until December. Okay. Because remember what I've said, this is not my first time rolling all of this out. So if you can't go back to back, if you can only do like a week of glorious kindness and then the next week you don't end up doing positive leadership and you wait, that is okay. Roll it out as slow as you need to roll it out. And then the other random icons on there is like I just showed that no school on 2 days and then my parent teacher conferences. I prefer to have all the virtues taught before parent teacher conferences. Now I'm going to remove that and we're going to go into questions. Ooh, hopefully I don't have too many questions. We'll see. If you have any questions. And then Dawn, is there anything you do a little bit different in implementing the virtues?
No, mine is pretty similar to that. Yeah. I like how you're filling that 4-day week though with Alpha Hawk. That's a great idea.
Yes.
So I really copied that idea. I like that.
And the other reason why I'm doing Alpha Hawks, I just love this comment, so I'm putting it up. The other reason I'm doing Alpha Hawks ahead is because some amazing, I always forget who it is. So I really need to like write their name on my computer because I always forget who it is to give them like personal shout out credit. Someone last year put the virtues on their Alpha Hawk wall and they had an Alpha Hawk, like a famous Alpha Hawk for each virtue, like Mr. Rogers for glorious kindness, I think. I don't remember where Mr. Rogers was. But yeah, so I'm going to do that this year because that's amazing. So I want to make sure my Alpha Hawk wall is introduced before I start my virtues. So that's why it kind of really works out. Melissa, yes, I love Ixley's helmet. I hope I'm saying that right. It's all good. Bum, bum, bum.
Patricia just asked, do you use the Once Upon a Time stories? And if so, can you talk about that?
Okay. I did not get to the Once Upon stories last year with my kindergartners. So the Once Upon a Time stories that she is referring to, let me see if I can get back to one of the slides that has... Okay, so on each poster, you'll notice that there is a Once Upon a Time in the corner. That is for your students to get oral practice with the virtues. So I'm just going to go to page number 139 here, and I'm just going to read a direct quote from Coach. So kids tell each other a story about Ixley and Quilly and brainy creativity. So this would not be how you roll out the virtues. This would be later in the year. If I do the Once Upon a Time stories, and now this is kindergarten, so remember, like if you're a higher grade, then you may get to it before then. So with the Once Upon a Time stories, I probably would not start that until, well, when I come back in January, I have to kind of do a couple of review weeks. So maybe end of January, beginning of February, starting that, where they're telling each other stories about the virtues. So I did use them 2 years ago with my students. I wasn't consistent. I'm still cool. Probably way too honest right now, but that's okay. So it's good that you guys know though that my classroom is a whole brain teaching classroom, but I've got grit. I don't quit. And there's things sometimes that I hit bumps. There's some years I get more things introduced than others. It just depends. So Patricia, that is a great question. All right, Carla. How fast would you roll out the rules, stories, super improver virtues? Okay, Carla. So I have never taught 5th grade. The highest I've taught is 3rd grade. And kudos to you for teaching 5th grade because I was on the struggle bus when I taught 3rd grade because I was like, whoo, I am meant for younger learners. Anyway, you could probably teach all the rules on day 1. So follow Coach's day 1 script and teach them all day on day 1. Now, Dawn also teaches all the rules on day 1. And so Dawn, because we were kind of talking about this beforehand, talk about stories and when you would probably introduce the virtues, and then talk about how you unlock Super Improver really quick.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so we start school on a Wednesday. So depending, same thing about how those first couple days go, I try to introduce the rules the first day or two and definitely get them introduced in the first 3. Then I really like your idea of putting that Alpha Hawk piece in. Typically, I would think that after I introduce the rules, the next week I would have started the Glorious Kindness and spend 1 week on each. For upper grades, you can definitely roll the rules out in one day. And I don't know if we have upper teachers in the chat that can share how they do the virtues. If you did one a day and then just always followed that calendar for the happies. I start stories right away on the first day. And once again, I've used these strategies before, so how I introduce them, it might be in a faster pace than somebody who's new. I know my first year was Super Improver. I waited and waited till the end of first quarter. Last year, I was like, I need to get this going faster. So I started making my stories worth like 5 stories at a time so I could unlock the Super Improver wall. But generally by the middle to the end of the first quarter, I want Super Improver unlocked.
I love that, Dawn, because what I usually tell people is once you have used Super Improver, it's really hard waiting to get it unlocked at the beginning of the next year. Carla, I did think of something, and it's going to probably be hard to see on my visual, which, by the way, Mary, thank you. I'm glad that my little icons are helpful for you. So, Carla, one thing you could do if you want to still take 5 weeks with your 5th graders, I remember someone talking about this before. So, looking at the week of the 18th, some people that following week still do Glorious Kindness on Monday, and then they only spend 4 days on positive leadership. So then the week of the 25th, you would do Glorious Kindness Monday, positive leadership Tuesday, and then roll out selfless courage. The reason I don't do that is because I care about all of my virtues equally. And so I want to spend 5 days on all of them. So, really quick, another thing I saw. So, Carla, I hope we answered your question. If not, I will tag some people who I know have taught 5th grade and see if they'll get that answered for you when they're available on Facebook. Mary, I feel like you had it. Yes. So, Mary, I did not bring some of my books in from I can't get in my classroom right now. So I know if you were in my session on the kindergarten group, I had some books out. However, I will tell you that the amazing Jenny Klein is working very hard to update our digital library. Okay. The thing she needs from you is she has some unfilled bookshelves. So we want to roll this out. We want to send it out all updated with all these awesome titles of different books, but some of the shelves are still empty. And it's froze on me, but that's still cool. Oh, there's an empty shelf. There we go. So some of the shelves are still empty. So please, yes, Jenny is so helpful with the books. But yes, I have some books that I have already. I don't get me wrong, I use her library because it's so helpful, especially 3rd quarter when I've used up definitely all my books by then. But my 5 days rolling out the virtues, I have a different book every day that I read that talks about that virtue. Oh, Jenny Klein's here. That's so fun. So she even has a Google form because Jenny's amazing. So when I grow up, I am going to be so technically amazing like Jenny Klein. I've got grit. I don't quit. So anyway, and we are at 30 minutes, but please make sure if you have a book recommendation, please fill out that Google form for Jenny Klein. And let's see. I think that was all the questions that were in the chat. If you are watching the replay, feel free. I had some people last night ask some questions that they were watching the replay. And I was able to answer them when I had a moment in my life because, as you all know, we are real teachers as well. So everyone who's on staff is full-time teachers as well. So anyway, Jenny, I'm going to let you answer that question. And anyway, so I'm going to say goodbye for now. Have a great rest of your week. I think there are a couple more sessions. I can't remember off the top of my head because Skittles is still cool. Anyway, have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.